So we saw three different levels of mitzvahs, three different levels of limud Torah, and three different levels of the halachas of Talmud Torah. Now the Rebbe is going to discuss the level in which Torah is greater than mitzvahs. In general, this whole idea has been that the expression of the chibur of Elyon and Tachton is expressed more powerfully by mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are Tachton, right? I mean, mitzvahs, you're dealing with the Tachton, and you're bringing the Elyon into the Tachton, and therefore there's a revelation of something higher than both, which is that which allows the chibur of Elyon and Tachton, and that we explained in various different levels. Now the Rebbe is going to explain the advantage of Torah, and that there's even a level of Torah that's beyond v'hagisa b'yom v'layla. Now, in the mitzvah of limud Torah, hilchas Talmud Torah, so we said there were three levels. That a person learns to know that which he has to know, right? That a person is learning Torah in order to know the whole Torah, which is mitzad the neshama. And then there's a level of v'hagisa b'yom v'layla. Every spare moment he's learning Torah. Now the Rebbe says there's a level higher than that. Okay, so on relative to what we just learned, so to speak, this is a fourth level. Right now, but in Ois Vav, we talked about that level in which the person's learning Torah because the Torah is the Eibishter. Learning Torah because the Torah is Torah. Well, so now that seems to be this. So is this a fourth level in Hilchas? I mean, the Rebbe is going to say there's a level beyond Hilchas Talmud Torah. Okay, so this seems to be that level. We're not going to see anything new. We're going to see a new insight into something that we've already seen. But I don't know whether we can say this is new. I know it's very hard. This is a hard part of the mind. And it gets harder, exactly what the Rebbe wants. But okay, tests is hard. Chesed tests are hard. But this is all necessary. This is the last step in order to answer the question, and the question is, why do you need Mesiras Nefesh in order to fully accept the Torah? Mesiras Nefesh before you. Right? This is the last step before we're going to be able to understand that. That's Yud. Okay. V'yesh leim Rabbeinu Kesef. Shegam mitzvah de b'hagisa b'yom v'layla. Also that mitzvah. Kev and sham mitzvah same tzivuim la'adam. Since mitzvahs are commandments to people, udeloika Torah, not like the Torah itself. Shehi chachmaso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, Shalamayla Mishaychus Leilam, the Torah is not something, so to speak, written for me. Meaning there's a level, obviously, in which it is, right? And there's the level in which Nishmas Yisrael comes before Torah, and so the Torah is there for the sake of Nishmas Yisrael. It said, okay, 100%, that's true. But Lamaisa, what's the Torah? The Torah is the Eibishter's Chachma, the Eibishter's Ratzon. And if there's no me, that's still the Eibishter's Ratzon, it's the Eibishter's Chachma. Right? Whereas a mitzvah, a mitzvah is shaykh to the person who's mitzuveh, the person who's commanded. V'rak, sha'achar kach, but afterwards the Torah is yarda lamato. So the source of the Torah is a level that's completely transcendent, but we know this is the fifth parak in Tanya, but the Torah comes down. But when it comes down, it doesn't come down in a state that's different than it is up there. And that's very clear from the fifth parak in Tanya, and the Rebbe is going to explain that even more here. And he's going to talk about the inyan of Torah being or, and a certain aspect of or that is different than the aspect of or that we talked about earlier in the Maimon. We'll see. Hare. Hatara shaloimdim mitzad ha-mitzvah. The Torah that a person learns as a result of the mitzvah, the v'hagisa b'yom v'layla, that a person should involve himself in learning it, contemplating it all day. Loya Torah kameshi mitzad atzma, not the Torah as it is mitzad itself. So again, you could say that that's really the level that the Rebbe is talking about in Vav. Meaning this doesn't seem to be a fourth level relative to Ois Vav. This is a fourth level relative to Ois Zayin. In Ois Zayin, we learn three different levels of Hilchas Talmud Torah. You learn in order to know what to do. You learn in order to learn all of the Torah. And the highest level is V'hagisa b'yom v'layla. And then there's this level. Whatever it is, the Rebbe is going to explain it to us. Okay. That's beyond mitzvah. So relative to Ois Zion, this is a fourth level. But if you go back to Ois Vav, so then this seems to be that third level in Ois Vav. The Reis of which is what the Rebbe is saying. So, okay. I don't have any more clarity on that point. I'm just saying that you have to notice that when we're learning what we're learning. Zion said one thing, and interestingly enough, we thought, I think, when we were learning Zion, that the third level of Zion corresponded to the third level in Vav. That would make sense, right? Just like the third level of Torah corresponded to the three levels in Mitzvah. Well, not exactly, evidently. There's a level in Torah that transcends those three levels that we talk about in terms of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, because a mitzvah is limited by virtue of the fact that it's given to a person, whereas the Torah is the Torah. It's not limited by virtue of the fact it's given to us, because what's given to us? Torah. And what is it? It's still Torah. It's still that completely beyond finite reality, actually even beyond infinite, but we'll see also that's going to be important. Okay, that's Torah. Similar to the idea that comes from the Rashi in Matan Torah, where Rashi says, "V'yadaber Elokim es kol ha'dvar me'ela lemor." God spoke all these things, and Rashi says, "Melamed shamar Kadosh Baruch Hu says that it was a dibur echad." That the Immerse said before he said Anochi and Lo Yelecha and all these Seres Dibros, he said all of them at once, and then he said them, and then. Im Kain, the Medrash asked, Im Kain, if so, Ma Talmud Lamer Oid, so what does it come to teach? And what the next 15 psukim, what are they about? Because he said it all in Pasuk Aleph. Oh, Shechazar Pirush Kol Echad Vechad Bifnei Atzmei. He returned and explained each and every one individually and independently. Oh, okay. So there's obviously a lot of mefarshim on that Rashi. It's an amazing Rashi. But that Rashi is the fifth parak in Tanya. That what? There's an aspect of Torah that comes down into the world and is clothed in the world and expresses itself within the context of the world. And that's a Nechi, Lo Yelucha. There's one, and then there's two, and then there's three, and then there's four. And that's Elam Hazeh. Then there's an aspect of the Torah that's completely and totally transcendent of that. All 10 at once. And that's what the Eibusher wanted to teach us at Matan Torah. Don't think that the Torah that you're getting is just that which you are experiencing down there in Gvul, in Tachton. No, really the Torah is something completely and totally transcendent of that. And when you touch what you touch, you're touching this transcendent level. Okay, so in other words, the Torah remains what it is. This is the fifth parak in Tanya. The Torah remains Ritzonei v'Chochmasei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is completely transcendent of this world, even though it comes down and is clothed in Gashmis. So you and I can actually sit and learn it. But when we're learning it, what are we touching? We're touching something completely transcendent. And that transcendence hasn't been compromised in any way, shape, or form by virtue of the fact that it came down into the finite form it came. Fifth parak in Tanya, and that's the Aleph Beis in Yiddishkeit. And someone has to learn that chapter over and over and over and know it Baal Peh, and know everything about that chapter, and every time they learn Torah, they're thinking about that chapter. Then learning Torah will be a whole different experience. Okay, so that's along the lines of what the Rebbe is saying here. That's not the Torah as it is mitzad itself. Elo, the Torah that's relevant to people. What am I learning? Learning the Torah as it expresses itself in a way that's relevant to me. That doesn't in any way, shape, or form compromise the true reality of the Torah, that it's the Eibusher's Chochmah and the Eibusher's wisdom. That's true, and I can't possibly understand the Eibusher's Chochmah, and I can't possibly understand the Eibusher's Ratzon. Okay, that being said, he put it in a form that I can. I know what his Ratzon is. Why? Because he told me what his Ratzon is. Not only did he tell me what his Ratzon is, he told me what his Ratzon is in a language that I can understand. Oh, okay. But that doesn't mean still it's not his Ratzon, just because I can understand it down here in Gashmis. That's what's so astounding about Torah. But the level of the mitzvah of Vagisa is shaykh to me. So it has to be relevant to my reality. So I'm not expected to Vagisa Yom V'Layla when I'm asleep. Right? I'm not expected to Vagisa Yom V'Layla when I'm at work. Especially if I work for someone else. Right? We'll see. We'll have to bring certain examples of the level the Rebbe talks about later that's very subtle. But okay. V'amiti se'inyan, the Rebbe says. Amiti se'inyan, the limud Torah atzma. This is the fourth level of limud Torah. There's no question that this is the fourth level of limud Torah. Is it the same as the third level in Vav? Seems to be. But it's definitely a fourth level of limud Torah. V'amiti se'inyan, the limud Torah atzma. Kamei shi l'mayla mishayches l'adam, as the Torah is beyond any relevance to people. Who believe in the Torah l'shma, is learning Torah for its sake. That means the limud isn't even for a gisiyam and v'layla. Shal limud hu loy b'chtei l'kayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah. The learning is not in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, not even the highest expression of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is v'gisa b'yem and v'layla. Ela mitzvah Torah atzma. It's the Torah itself. Now again, that sounds very similar to what we saw in Vav. Okay. Now, why is the Rebbe saying all this? Where is he taking us? V'yesh l'hoisif. Shamayla ben limud Torah l'shma. The advantage of limud Torah l'shma, this level, this fourth level, l'gave limud b'chtei l'kayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah, relative to the limud that in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, even the highest expression of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is v'gisa b'yem and v'layla, which is halach in Shulchan Aruch. Who loy rak b'kavanas halimud. It's not only in the kavana of the limud. And now the Rebbe is making a subtle distinction between what we saw in Ois Vav and what we're going to see here. Because in Ois Vav we're talking about the kavana. When a person is learning Torah, what does he think he's doing? Meaning, what's his relationship to it? Is he learning it because it's the Eibishter's Chochmah? Is he learning it because it connects him to the Eibishter? Or is he learning it because it's Torah? And even that third level, which is similar to this, is still mitzad the Gavra. It's still mitzad the person's intention as to why it is that he's learning. And there's no question that the third intention, the third level is what the Rebbe is telling us we should strive for. Does that mean that we can't find it interesting because it's Chochmah and Bina? Of course we find it interesting. And does that mean that it doesn't connect us to a Kadosh Baruch Hu in a very powerful way? Of course it connects us to a Kadosh Baruch Hu in a very powerful way. And should I find that connection enticing? Yes, that connection is very enticing. Hopefully I'm interested in being connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu instead of just being connected to myself. Okay, fine. But there's a third level, the Torah is Torah. So now, that's all kavanah. So here it says, Elagam b'halimud b'foyel. Now, what does that mean? So we'll see. It's very subtle. It's very hard to put your finger on this, but we'll do our best. In the limud itself, in actuality, the kasher halimud hu, that when a person's learning, is b'chdei l'kayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Halimud hu bagbala. Then the limud is limited, because after all, we already said in Zion that there's a limit to, Vagisa b'yem and v'layla was the closest we got to beyond limitation, but even that has certain limitations, right? Because there are times when I'm not chayiv, times when I'm potter, places when I'm potter. The kasher limud hu b'chdei l'kayim mitzvahs Talmud Torah, halimud hu bagbala, it's limited. Dagam b'mitzvahs v'agisa b'yem v'layla. That even in the mitzvah of Vagisa b'yom and v'layla, you should meditate on it day and night. Yesh kama v'kama agbolos. There are a number of limitations. Kamavur b'ilchus Talmud Torah is explained in Hilchus Talmud Torah. For your work, your pater from Vagisa b'yom and v'layla. Again, especially if you work for someone else. One of the examples of what the Rebbe is about to talk about will be, what if you work for yourself? The Rebbe used to have an interesting expression, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mashein came b'limud Torah l'shma, learning Torah l'shma. Why are you learning Torah? Because the Torah is Torah. Because it's there. Right? Not to quote some English mountain climber, but why are you learning Torah? Because the Torah is the Torah. He doesn't consider any limitations. Whether or not he's obligated or he's not obligated. That's not part of his cheshbon. We'll see. We'll keep reading. His learning is beyond limitation in time. And also beyond any limitation in place, space. Like the Gemara in Kedushin that says, La'oin Sheshani. La'oin Sheshani, the Gemara is talking about someone who ended up learning Torah in a place where Al Pi Halacha, it's probably not the place where you should learn Torah. Right? And the Gemara asks about one of the Amoraim, what are you doing? Why are you learning Torah in such a place? La'oin Sheshani. He was Einus. It was against his will, so to speak. Now, we have to understand. We have to finish the paragraph and we'll try to understand what that means. What does it mean, La'oin Sheshani? Didn't understand what was going on. That means that one of the things the Rebbe used to say was that someone who owns a business has to be geinev min hazman, from the business to learn Torah. Steal time from the business to learn Torah. What does that mean? That if a person's so involved in learning Torah, even though he's potter from learning Torah, why is he potter? He's at work. I have to learn Torah now. He has a business. He's running his business. If you're working for someone else, you can't do this because you have to work for him and you're getting paid by the hour. But if you're not working for someone else, okay, so you're working for yourself. It's your business. So can you take a little time out and lock the office door and sit and learn? Yeah, why not? So the Rebbe said, every yid should be geinev a little time from his work. Steal a little time from his work in order to learn Torah. Now, what's einish, shani? So it's very subtle point, but a person, the Rebbe is talking about a level in which a person is so involved in learning Torah that they're almost oblivious to anything else going on, right? Not in a negative way, in a positive way. And it's a story that the Rebbe tells in Farbrengen that the Mittler Rebbe always told us Chassidim to talk Chassidus all the time. Just talk Chassidus. The Mittler Rebbe said, my dream is that when my Chassidim meet in the street, they'll discuss Yichudi law and Yichudi Torah. Discuss an Indian in Chassidus as opposed to Russian politics, which I'm sure was fascinating, right? Just as fascinating as American politics, right? Because you live in Russia, that's what's fascinating. American politics is boring if you live in Russia. Russian politics is interesting. So whatever the politics of the village was and who's going to do this and that, right? Instead of talking about that, people should talk about Yichudi law and Yichudi Torah. So there were some Chassidim of the Mittler Rebbe who were busy talking about Chassidus, and they were walking on the road. They were going on the road, and it started to rain, and they took shelter in a house. The house right in, they ran into a house and took shelter from the rain, and they continued talking about Chassidus. Then the rain stopped, and they left the house, and they noticed that the house was a place where you probably shouldn't be learning Torah. There's different shittas as to what it was. Who knows? Could have been who knows what it was. But it was a place that you probably shouldn't be learning Torah. And they felt very, very badly. So when they got to Lubavitch, they went to the Mittler Rebbe and they asked the Mittler Rebbe for a tikkun, for this learning that they did in this place, that is a place that you probably shouldn't learn Torah. So the Rebbe asked them, did you use your time well? So they said, what do you mean? When you were in that place, were you learning? That's what you were doing? You were using your time? Yeah. Okay, you don't need a tikkun. They didn't notice where they were. They were so involved in their Talmud Torah, they forgot to look at what was written above the house. Who knows? It might have been, who knows what it was, right? A house of a Zara. Who knows what it was, right? Probably it wasn't somewhere that it's Pashut Asr Deraisa to learn, right? Okay. There's a story of the Rogachover that Hirschsprung used to tell. Hirschsprung was the Yeshiva in Montreal who knew the Rogachover. He met the Rogachover in Europe, and. I better drink it fast. There is a slow hope. So the Rogachover's wife passed away. Whether Rav Hirschsprung saw this or heard this is unclear. I heard it from someone who said he heard it from Rav Hirschsprung, but he's not sure whether Rav Hirschsprung definitely knew the Rogatchover. But was he there when this happened, or he heard it? That he didn't know. But he heard it from Rav Hirschsprung. That he was a bacher in Montreal. That the Rogatchover at his wife's Levi, or sitting shiva for his wife, so he was asking certain halacha questions and discussing an Indian in halacha. And someone was there, and he's big Yer Shemayim, very from. So he came over to the Rogatchover and said, "Are you talking that you're learning Torah when you're in a veilus? Because an oval it's also for an oval to learn Torah. Not allowed to learn Torah. Like on Tisha B'Av, we don't learn Torah. So an oval is not allowed to. The week of Shiva, you don't learn Torah. That's why, if you've ever been in a house of Shiva, many of you were in Rabbi Vichnen's house, so you'll notice that usually I got the honors, so to speak. I would say over the Mishnayos before he said the last Kaddish, because he's not allowed to learn those Mishnayos, right? So now, of course, he does, because he's chayiv in learning Torah now, just like any other person, right? There's other limitations of a veilus, but not limited Torah. But the first week, you're not allowed to learn Torah. So that's why someone else says over the Mishnayos, for there's an extra Kaddish. So the Rogatchover was talking Torah, and this guy said, "Are you learning Torah that a novel is not allowed to learn Torah?" So the Rogatchover was not known to be shy, and he also was rather caustic, sharp is the word he used. He was sharp. He was harif, sharp. In Yiddish, he was very sharp, right? Someone once wrote him a question, and he wrote him back an answer with about 15 tesvasim. 15 different tesvas. This guy's looking at these tesvas, they have nothing to do with this question. He looks and he looks and he looks, until he realized there was one thing in common in these tesvas. The word shaita, idiot, appeared in every tesvas. He was that kind of guy. He was very sharp. So the Rogatchover evidently said to him that if you say one more word, I'll put you in the grave. That's evidently what he said. So they also say about the Rogatchover, this is what they say. Obviously I didn't hear this from him, but this is what they say, and I've heard this from many sources, that the Rogatchover said that one of the things that he was over constantly was learning Torah in the bathroom, that he couldn't stop himself from learning Torah in the bathroom. He was always thinking about Torah. Couldn't stop himself. They say, I'm not sure, that's why he never got a haircut. That he wouldn't take off his yarmulke long enough to get his haircut because he was always learning Torah. Right? So he had long hair in the back. Right? That's what they say. Right? But he was a very interesting fellow. After he told the guy, "I'll put you in the kever," page Ayin Dalet. After he said, "I'll put you in the kever," he then said, "Why don't you go look in Gemara Kedushin?" He gave him this marmaka. L'oin soy potter. Right? That someone for whom l'oin soy shani. That someone for whom it's oinus, it's shani. So what's the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe is saying that there's a level of involvement in Torah, that a person is so involved in Torah that not chas v'shalom, that he's allowed to learn Torah in places that Shulchan Aruch says you can't learn Torah. That's not what the Rebbe is saying, and don't understand that from here. But it might be that a person is in a state of connection to the Torah that they don't notice what's going on around them, ad kedei kach, that they might end up learning Torah in a place where actually l'chatchila they wouldn't have learned Torah. Like the story with the Chassidim of the Mitla Rebbe. Our Rebbe, we know, during the Shiva for the Rebbetzin, saying Torah all day long. Now, if you know anything about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what else does he talk about? He doesn't have anything else to say. Right? He really doesn't. The Rebbe talked to us for 40 gigabytes in audio during the week. Forget Shabbos and Yom Tov, it wasn't taped. The audio of the Rebbe's talks to us take up 40 gigabyte. I learned this when I bought an iPod. That was the first thing that came out, those little ones, yeah. Right. You know, thing, iPod, iPhone, iPad, and then the father says I paid. So the iPod. So I was in Target in New York, and I called up my son in here in Eretz Israel and said, I'm getting an iPod, but there's for 40 gigabytes and 80 gigabytes. And of course, I wanted to buy 40 gigabytes. Why? Why did I want 40 gigabytes? Come on, guys.
Hold on to that.
No, because I'm cheap. Why should I spend for an 80 if there's a 40? So I said, I'd like to get 40. Right? Maybe it was 6120, but I think it was 4080. And my son said, no, you have to get 80. Now, of course, that's always what a child says. Spend more money, Dad, right? Like, why should you spend less if you can spend more? But he again gave a reason. He said the Rebbe, he was the one that was going to put the Rebbe in. The reason I was getting it was to have the Rebbe in my iPod. And he was the one who was going to do that for me because he knew how to do it. So he said, the Rebbe is 40 gigabytes. Just audio, not the videos. Audio is 40 gigabytes. Now, I don't know how many hours that is, but that's a tremendous amount of time, right? An unbelievable amount of time. Okay, and what did the Rebbe talk about in those 40 gigabytes? Torah. Nothing else. Never talk about anything else. So to speak, the Rebbe, by sitting Shiva for his wife, is lying Sushani. What's the Rebbe going to talk about? So yes, he's patur from Talmud Torah. And everybody who went there said exactly the same thing, that they went to so to speak, comfort, and they walked away comforted. Right? Okay. So that's the level the Rebbe is talking about here. It's very subtle. It's very hard to put your finger on it. Right? But the Rebbe says there's a level beyond Hagbala, that the person will be so involved in Torah that they're beyond Vagisa B'Yem and V'Layla. So again, the examples we brought, the Rebbe's lashon of the Baal Asik stealing from his Asik to learn Torah, right? He's patur. He's patur from Vagisa B'Yem and V'Layla. Even that third level of Talmud Torah, he's patur from. Why? He's working. He's at work. He's running his business, but he can steal from that time. The story of the Mitler Rebbe's Chassidim, the story of the Rogachover, the Rebbe by the Rebbetzins Shiva. And the Gemara in Kedushin. The Gemara in Kedushin, someone was talking, he was talking Torah in the Beis HaMerchatz, in the bathhouse. And someone mentioned it. And he said, La'in Seishani. He was so involved in learning, he didn't even notice that that's what was happening. Vatam lazeh pnimis inyanimu, the reason, ki ha-mitzvah de v'agisa, the mitzvah of Hagisa B'Yem and V'Layla, which is the third level of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, Hitzivui la'adam, is a commandment to a person. Lochen yesh ba'agbolos, therefore it's limited. Why? L'fi adam, because people are limited. So the expression of this is limited. It means every free moment, Beseder, but there's moments where you're not free, so you're not chayiv in the mitzvah of Hagisa B'Yem and V'Layla. And there's times you go to sleep, and you're allowed to go to sleep. It's not also to go to sleep. Oh no, Vagisa B'Yem and V'Layla have to learn all day. No, that's not right. No, right. Just quoting a friend who wrote me a note that I got early this morning. He was talking about someone. He said he has a severe case of Balchuva-itis. Right. So the Baal Tshuva might get all, he won't go to sleep. I have to learn Torah every minute. No, this has to be done. I mean, there's some people who are mahadrin in relating to the gvul of it. No, you don't have to go there. You don't have to be so firm about the gvul. But you also have to recognize the gvul. Wait a minute, I'm a human being. I have to eat, I have to sleep, I have to go to work, right? I have to say shalom aleichem to people, right? One of the most important things, I was thinking about this relative to the wedding, right? See people joining in other people's simchas, and also I was in a shul on Shabbos that I was not a regular attendee, and I sat down in a seat, and two young galait, 35, 40, sat across from me. We were sitting across from each other for 2.5 hours. They were in that shul, that was their shul. At no point whatsoever did those two look at me and say, Shalom Aleichem, good Shabbos, what's your name, where are you from? Aleph base in Yiddishkeit, they don't know Aleph base in Yiddishkeit. But they were learning a mimer, they weren't learning a mimer, they were davening, they weren't davening, irrelevant. Aleph base in Yiddishkeit. You see a Jew in shul, you go up to him and say, Shalom Aleichem, good Shabbos. Aleph base. Oh, Vagisa Bayam of Alayla, I can't, I'm learning Torah. I mean, they weren't learning Torah. They were just davening, they were fine, they behaved very nicely, but completely missed Yiddishkeit. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. I asked Rabbi Levinger if it's like this by the Pelish. She said, Chas v'shalom. So you walk into Pelish's shul, someone will come up to you, they'll give you a siddur, they'll say, hello, how you doing? The Babbage were the friendliest people in the world to everybody else and to each other. We don't give the time of day. It's like, I couldn't believe it. Pasha couldn't believe it. Now, obviously, there are lots of friendly people in the shul. But these two guys, I mean, where have you been? They don't look like they were schleppers who didn't want to be there and were upset at God and Yiddishkeit and the world and that. No, perfectly normal guys, just put together, right? Somehow they missed the Aleph base in Yiddishkeit. You see a Jew in shul, what do you say? Shalom Aleichem, right? Bereshis Shmeis, first things, names, right? What's your name? Where are you from? Oblivious. So Vagisa Bayam of the Laila, I have to learn Torah. Then I have to go say hello to people in shul also. You're sitting and learning a mimer in shul. So say so finish the ois. You don't Lefi alocha taka, if you're sitting and learning Isig b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. But if this is a mitzvah averis, which it might taka be, right? A mitzvah averis, because you might not be able to go say Shalom Aleichem to that Jew who just walked into your shul because davening is going to start pa 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 pa. So get to the place in a mimer, you can quickly, you're going to look away from the mimer and say hello to someone anyway, or make yourself a cup of tea, or go get a piece of cake, or whatever you're going to do. Get up and go say Shalom Aleichem to the two new people who just walked in shul. And then go back to your place. That's what Jews do. That's Yiddishkeit. Right? So, Vagisa Bayim and Balayla, but there's other things also. Right? So it's limited. A mitzvah Vagisa Bayit Tzivui Elodim, it's a tzivui to a person. Lachin Yesh Ba'agbala, Lefi Adam. People are limited and people have other things to do. Not other things to do, to play TikTok or whatever that is. Right? Or right? Other things to do that are also what the Eibishter wants. Oh, but not this level, not this fourth level that the Rebbe is talking here, which again, it seems to be commensurate to the third level here, but the Rebbe did differentiate between this and the level in Vav by saying that the level in Vav, that's the Kavana. This is mitzad the Metzias of the Torah, the essence of the Torah. Mashenkin b'limit Torah l'shma. Since the Torah, as it is in terms of itself, the Torah itself is beyond limitation. The pasuk that the Rebbe quoted earlier, beyond any measure. So to the learning of the Torah of a person, when the learning is mitzad haTorah atzma, as the Rebbe says in brackets, mitzad the Torah itself, not to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, certainly not because the Torah is interesting, and not because he wants to be connected to the Eibishter, right? But rather because the Torah is the Torah, the Torah is the Eibishter, and the Torah is the Torah, and he learned the Torah mitzad the Torah, because the Torah is the Torah. It is what it is, so it should be learned. So he goes beyond the limitations of time and space. And that's a very subtle point, but so we tried to bring certain examples that express that. But it's very subtle. Remember, I used to visit LA every year. I dive in a particular shul in LA. Very rarely did anybody who I didn't know, and the people I knew in shul, of course, they'd say hello, but the people I didn't know didn't say hello to me. One person I didn't know always said hello every single morning, who was the holiest person in the shul and who was more makbid on his time than anybody else in shul. That was Rabbi Reichik, senior, Olav Shalom. Shimon David Reichik, who was, a very holy person. Right? He was so holy. He never touched his beard. So he had one of those beards that was like 82 beards, and there was all these things sort of that went together and came apart, and he never touched it. Like, with his hands, he would wash it, but he never touched it. And it was just this. is this incredibly holy person. So I'll tell you one story about him that I heard from his granddaughter. That once he was walking along the street in LA, and his daughter-in-law, with this granddaughter in the car, she was a little girl, stopped to pick him up. So he got in the car, and he looked at the driver, and he said, "Thank you very much. What's your name?" That was his daughter-in-law. Right? Just didn't recognize her. So fine, gets dropped off at home. The daughter-in-law goes home and calls up her mother-in-law and says, "Are you talking that the Shver didn't recognize me? What's going on?" So she says, "What?" Now she has kids of it. She's been this daughter-in-law for 10 years, right? So the mother-in-law asks, "What Mrs. Reichert? What do you mean he didn't recognize?" So she says, I saw him on the street. I picked him up. He got in the car. I drove him home. On the way, he asked me who I am. And Mrs. Reichert said, "I'll kill him. He got into a car with a woman he doesn't know." Those are the Reichert. Right? Completely different planet than the rest of us. Right? So he was once taken that when Reagan, I think actually Carter established it to his credit. Carter established Yud Aleph Nisan as Education Day USA. Right? The Rebbe's birthday every year would be Education Day USA, which is interesting because Carter's basically an anti-Semite, but he managed to do that. He had a lot of bittul to the Rebbe. There's letters that are very interesting. So Reagan kept the tradition on. So because Reagan was from California, right, he was the governor of California before, that was his first political position, etc. So they brought Rabbi Reichik to Reagan in the White House on Education Day when they used to sign these things in. That's not Rabbi Reichik's thing, okay, but they brought him because of California. So Reagan saw him and said, "Who's this? And who's this holy man?" And he said, "It's Rabbi Reichik." "Where's he from?" He's from Los Angeles. So I think he asked Rabbi Reichik how long he's been in Los Angeles. And Rabbi Reichik said, 40 years. Reagan started to cry. He said, "This man has lived in Los Angeles for that long and he's still this holy?" He started to cry. He saw Rabbi Reichik. I couldn't believe it, that anybody could possibly be that connected to a Kodesh Baruch Hu and live in Los Angeles. He knew what Los Angeles was. He was the governor, right? That was Rabbi Reichik. He was the only one who said hello to me. Very happy to come over, Shalom Aleichem. I don't really remember my name, right? He might come over every day, right? Shalom Aleichem. Did he remember that he said it yesterday? I don't know. Right? He was involved in whatever. He would sit and learn Torah for 5-6 hours. You'd see him in the mikveh early in the morning. He'd be there for the early minyanim, but he wouldn't daven until 11 or 12. He'd be sitting and learning the whole morning. Amazing guy. Absolutely amazing. But he used to say hello to find the time. So there's the limitation of Gisa there is a limitation, whereas this level is completely beyond limitation. Okay, so now we found an expression of Talmud Torah that somehow is a greater expression of bittul, even in the tachton, than mitzvahs. So up until now, our dagesh, our focus was the greatest expression of the yichud of Elyon and Tachton will be through mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are dafka in the Tachton. So now, and the Rebbe is going to explain this even more in Ois Tes, having said what we just said, we've also just said, well, but Talmud Torah, even though you're in the Tachton, Talmud Torah affords you, this level of Talmud Torah, affords you the greatest connection whatsoever to that which is completely beyond limitation, the Elyon and beyond. Okay, so let's see. I was going to explain it in Tes, and then we're going to start answering our question in Yud. Our question is, why do I need Mesiras Nefesh to fully accept the Torah of Purim, right? The question that the Rebbe doesn't ask in Vata Tetzava. The Rebbe just gives us the answer in Vata Tetzava because of Mesiras Nefesh. So here the Rebbe is answering the question. Now, of course, this Maimar was said 30 years before Vata Tetzava. V'yesh loimer. Shachibur del yonim v'tachtonim. This connection of the upper realms and the lower realms, shenischadesh b'matan Torah, that was brought about at the time of Matan Torah, who mizgale be'ikr b'limud Torah l'shma, is revealed in the most powerful way through this limud Torah, what we just discussed. Again, We said at the beginning, when we started talking about the what's the Chiddush of Matan Torah, the Yichud of Elyon and Tachta, and the fact that these two realms, which were completely separate before Matan Torah, such that physical reality could not be imbued with Kedusha, that separation was done away with at the time of Matan Torah, and now physicality could become a davar chefetz the Kedusha, chefetz the mitzvah. Okay. And the essential expression of that was in mitzvahs ad kedei kach, that if you remember in that footnote 31, val derech zeh hu b'Torah. Only al derech zeh hu b'Torah. Really, the ikar expression of this is in mitzvahs, but also in Torah. That's what the Rebbe said when he was discussing mitzvahs. Right? Shedavka b'matan Torah nitan akarich shalim the Torah yifol shinui ba'adam alemda. And then the Rebbe said this big chiddush. The dafka at matan Torah, what happened? Learning Torah can bring about a change in a person. It's not just some interesting connection to the upper realm, temporary, but it can bring about a long-lasting change in a person. And that's what the Rebbe is now explaining, what that change is here. But now it's not only al derech zeh, similarly Torah can do what mitzvahs do. We're learning that Torah can actually do something that's more powerful than mitzvahs on this one level, this aspect of Torah. Okay, so let's go a little further. At some point, we have to have some sort of hakdama to understand this, but we'll see where we need the hakdama. The neisef al zed, in addition to the fact, in addition to the fact that in order that there should be a joining together of the upper realms and the lower realms, which is the chiddush of Matan Torah, and we said earlier, hu al yedei bittul hageder de elyon v'tachton, what's the ultimate Hebrew of these two opposite states of being? Obviously through the revelation of a level beyond them, right? And that level beyond them is Atzmus, and that brings about the doing away with the bittul of the gather of Elyon and the gather of Tachton, the defined state of Elyon, the limited state of Elyon, and the limited state of Tachton, such that the two of them can exist in harmony. Right. So now we said before, there are different ways in which that happens. Torah is going to be unique, right? But there's the general way in which that happens is either or, and we're going to talk about Torah as or, we're going to talk about or on a completely different level, or ein sof, right? But generally, sevev, when sevev is revealed in mamale, what happens? When those two come into a state of Hebrew, what usually happens?
Mamale is
right, mamale is bottle. There's a revelation of the infinite, so the finite ceases to be. Okay, so where there was finite, now there's infinite. So that's not exactly a Hebrew, but that's what happens when those two states come into some sort of contact one with the other. Or there's another way in which they can come into contact, which is the mashpi and the makabel. The upper realm wants to reveal itself in the lower realms, but it doesn't want to be mavatal the lower realms. That means the upper realm has to, so to speak, just to use the same word, it's not really the same word, it's more tzimtzum than bittul, but it has to be mevatel itself in order to allow itself to be revealed in the lower realms. Okay, tzimtzum. So that's what happens to or when it's revealed in the lower realms. So then it loses its infinite characteristic, and now is revealing itself in finite. So one or the other is dominant, right? Then there was the third level that the Rebbe mentioned in the Maimer, mamutza, where they, so to speak, meet in the middle, and that's the Torah. The Torah is the mamutza between the person below and the Eibishter above, okay, and allows them to connect. Now, in that level, the Rebbe didn't talk about any bittul of this or that, okay. But and it's interesting because we learned this in Basi Lagani, Tavshin Chaf Daled. Or ein sof l'mayla adein kais lamat adein tachlis. In other words, what? There is a level of our ein sof that even when it's lamata, it doesn't lose in any way, shape, or form its characteristics as our ein sof. Right? It maintains its infinite character even though it's revealed below. Right? That there's no tzimtzum mamish. Right? And that was the last 3 years of Basi Lagani, Chav Beis, Chav Gimmel, and Chav Dalet. Okay, fine. So that's what the Rebbe is going to say now about Torah, because Torah is or, and Torah is a level of or that even when it's revealed in the below, it maintains its character as the above. So it brings about the ultimate Hebrew of Elyon and Tachton. So let's just see that. We'll stop on time. Let's increase it there. We're also going to start davening on time today. That was the promise. What drips more, the cup or my mustache? That's the problem. I don't usually have to worry about the cup dripping. Okay, let's go a little further and we'll finish this up tomorrow. Because we're going to start answering the question tomorrow. Why do we need Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh b'feil. And why Mesiras Nefesh b'keyach, Natsav and Ishmi isn't enough. The Noisav Hazeh Shebechdei second line. Shebechdei sheyuchal liyar tzachibur d'elyonim v'tachtonim. Hu al yedei bittul ageder d'elyon v'tachtonim. It's through the bittul of the gather, the whole defined, limited state of Elyon and Tachton, by virtue of bringing down and revealing a level that's beyond Elyon and beyond Tachton. That's beyond both. Right? That's what we said earlier in the Mimer, and that's what was explained to us at great length in Basi Lagani Tafshin Chaf Daled. That's what the Rebbe explains. Shedugmasei ba'adam. Where do we see that in a person? Where is that most powerfully expressed? Shedugmasei ba'adam hu k'she'oisig b'Torah l'shma. That we're calling it the fourth level. It's the fourth level of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, but it's really beyond the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah goes as far, so to speak, as V'agisa B'yem V'laylo. And then this fourth level is beyond the mitzvah. You're not chayiv. You're butter. Still learning. Why? Can't not. It's just who he is. Why is he learning Torah? Because it's Torah. Sha'azu bebittel hametzias, hein benegei laguf, both relative to the guf. He's certainly not learning the Torah in order to know what to do. Ve'hein benegei leneshama, he's certainly not learning the Torah simply to connect to the Eibshter. Hine gam achibur d'elyonim v'tachtein atzmei. So therefore, the unity of the upper realms and the lower realms, that unity itself is misgale belimud zeh, is revealed in this type of learning. Again, this isn't the kavanah that he has when he's learning. I've made that very clear. This is simply the state where the person is so involved in Torah that that's just what he does. And he'll do it beyond limitation. Even if he's in a situation where he's potter from it, well, okay, beseder, but it's just who he is. He doesn't have anything else to say, anything else to do. Not in a negative way, in a positive way, obviously. Shabilti gvul de Torah, the unlimited aspect of Torah, which is Elyonim, payal ala adam, affects the person, tachtenim, shalimir Torah shalayeh lamayla miyagbol, that his learning of Torah will be beyond limitation. Okay, so now we have to figure that out, and we have to spend some time and do that.